Imagine a wall of liquid 25 feet high, traveling at 35 miles an hour. It isn't water, it's thick, black, and twice as heavy as the ocean. The year is 1919. In the north end of Boston, a massive steel tank looms 5 stories over the cobblestone streets. It's holding 2.3 million gallons of fermenting molasses. But this isn't just a container, it's a ticking bomb. The local kids have a game. They bring jars to the base of the tank to catch the sweet, dark liquid that is constantly oozing from the seams. The neighbors hear it groaning at night. The sound of steel under impossible pressure. The company, United States Industrial Alcohol, knows that the tank is failing. And their solution? Well, they didn't fix the rivets. They didn't reinforce the steel. They painted the entire tank brown to hide the leaks. They chose the aesthetic over the architecture, hoping that the winter air would keep the pressure down. But they were wrong. January 15th, the temperature has swung from a freezing 0 to a sudden 46. Inside the tank, the molasses is expanding. The internal pressure is fighting against steel that was never thick enough to begin with. And then a sound like a machine gun. Those are the steel rivets shearing off and flying like bullets into nearby houses. The tank just doesn't leak, it disintegrates. 2 million gallons of vicious, boiling hot liquid are released in a single second. It hits the Atlantic Coastline Elevated Railway, nearly ripping a train off the tracks, and it smashes wooden buildings into splinters as if they were made of toothpicks. For the people on Commercial Street, there was no sound of rushing water, only a low guttural roar and the smell of burnt sugar as the world turned black. The next hour, the molasses cools in the winter air, turning into a solid, sticky trap. Rescuers are literally glued to the ground, unable to move as they reach for survivors. The next year, the first class action lawsuit in American history is filed. 119 separate cases are fused into one massive legal battle against a corporation. The next decade, because of this sticky tragedy, every state in the U.S. passes new laws. For the first time, engineers must be licensed. And for the first time, blueprints must be signed by a professional. And today, every time you walk into a building and trust that the ceiling won't collapse, you are still living in the ripple of 1919. Our modern safety standards were literally written in molasses. We like to believe that progress is a steady climb, that we get smarter and safer because we want to. But history shows a darker truth. We only often learn the right way to build after we've seen exactly how many lives it costs to build the wrong way. The North End was a neighborhood of immigrants, people who didn't have a voice to complain about the leaking giant in their backyard. And their safety was traded for a cheaper coat of paint. But what if the steel had held? What if those bulging rivets had survived the January thaw? Without the Great Molasses Flood, the first of its kind class action lawsuit never happens. The legal precedent that forced corporations to be held liable for acts of negligence rather than acts of God is delayed by decades. And more importantly, the licensed professional engineer remains a suggestion, not a law. So what about you? What time in your life have you demanded a change when everyone else was ready to accept it the way it was? Share it in the comments below. And if you would like to explore more of these ripples in history and in life, please hit subscribe and join me on the Ripple Trace.